Playing online and on smart devices. Now on London Scotty Radio, it's podcast time. I'm George Matlock. Welcome to Scottie MOT, the health and well-being show from London Scotty Club. And a big thanks to our swelling audience. Swelling, I tell you, because someone trapped their foot in the door. Welcome, please, back Cath Marchbank, Welfare Officer from Scotty charity STECS. Hello, and how are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thanks, George. It's been a gorgeous day here. So I've been busy planting out in the garden, getting all the tubs and everything on the wall so the Scotties can't get to the soil and the flowers that I'm putting in. So it's a full-time job. The dogs are chasing round after me, trying to get digging and getting the plants before I get them in the pots.
And what kind of plants were you potting today?
I've done some pansies and violas today.
Right, well, I know for a fact that those are going to be the sort of thing that Scotties would trample all over because they're so flat and so close to the ground, aren't they, those flowers?
They
very
certainly
close to the soil.
are, yeah. So lots of hanging baskets and baskets on the wall, you know, like hay net type baskets. So the Scotties can't get up there, but while they're down on the ground, you know, they're all wanting to help.
Now, you rehome, of course, a lot of Scotties. How many at the moment are residing with you, either as guests or as permanent features?
I've 3 extra in at the moment, so there's 8 dogs here in total. My 5 and 3 lodgers.
My word, it is never a dull moment at your home, I can tell.
Oh, it certainly isn't.
Right, so we've got really loads to get through today. So first of all, let me put this out to you all out there. How many hours does your Scottie sleep? We will be revealing the results of our latest online poll conducted among London Scotty Club members. And we explore how listeners, swelling or otherwise, listen to our podcasts, or as we now start to call them, Pawed-Casts. Well, Cath, before we look into those results of the online survey, I know you've had a question in from one of our members, of the London Scotty Club members, so we'll be looking into that as well. But let's start, first of all, with that huge topic that every household is talking about at the moment, and it's not about acquiring a Scottie, it's about the cost of living. Inflation, we know it's going up. It's going up all around the world. In the United States, in the UK, in Europe and beyond. And the cost of pet food's going up, the cost of vets, prescriptions, etc. It's all starting to add up. The result of which has been, there's been a lot of headlines in the last week, Cath, around the topic of dogs that have been, that were basically dumped, is the right word to use. They've been dumped with kennels in Birmingham. We heard of several cases in the Birmingham area where people said they could no longer afford to have a dog. Now, we don't know what the breeds are, but it doesn't matter. All dogs are wonderful and all dogs matter. And these dogs have been left with the kennel because these people can no longer afford to have their dogs as pets. What do you say? Are you hearing anything like this? Is it starting to, pinch the Scottie world?
At the moment in the Scottie world, we're not seeing an increase in dogs through the cost of living at the moment, but we are seeing an increase in young dogs, people who bought them in lockdown. These dogs are now getting some a year old, some coming up to 2 years old, and this is a time when Scotties are the most difficult. Hormones are kicking in, the temperaments are changing and people can't cope with them, and so I'm seeing an increase in younger dogs coming through, but it's not, at the moment it's not due to the cost of living. I think in the Scottie world that will come through in the next few months. People, they haven't done the sums when they've been forking out and buying the dogs. I think everybody had some spare cash during lockdown. We saw a huge increase in the price of puppies. Scotties went from £1,500 before lockdown up to about £3,000. So people haven't got that money now to be able to go out and buy the puppies. But I don't think they've taken on board, just how much it costs to look after the dog correctly.
Now, you mentioned earlier there that a number of factors could be at play. It sounded like one of them might be seasonal. So are you saying that there are certain things at this time of the year that might be affecting that? I mean, in other words, is this a kind of a short-term spike in this time of the year, or is there a worry that this could now snowball during the course of the year?
I think it will snowball. People, they've gone out, they've bought the puppies. They've had Scotties all their lives. The last puppies that they had 14 years ago, people are 14 years older. They forget how hard work a puppy is. So that's the increase in the dogs that I've got at the moment coming through. And a lot of it is, and I'm also helping a lot of people train the dogs, give them some advice on how to discourage some behaviour that they're seeing in the Scottie world. So, I've been quite busy on the phones this last few weeks, which I'm always happy and glad to help, because I would rather, if I can, keep a dog in the home. STECS isn't all about taking a dog away from somebody and rehoming it. If we can keep the dog in the home, give people advice. Sometimes just changing feed, looking at the diet, giving the dog more exercise, the way that, what we've looked at before, the way you hold the lead, lots of different tips, and we can sometimes keep the dog in that home. But if people have lost their jobs, losing houses, and they can't keep the dogs, take the dogs to the new rented property, again, we've seen dogs come in because of that reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And indeed, this is a story of economics. So this is about the possibility people have either lost their jobs, they've been furloughed, they're on a fixed and minimal income, and now on top of everything else, they've got another mouth in the house to feed, which is their pet dog, and that is costing them more because the cost of pet food and vet bills and etc. are all on the rise, and we don't know when that will end. I mean, nobody is yet confident enough to say, "Oh, this is just a blip. This will all end well." We don't know that, and of course we have to wait to see how central banks react, and whether interest rates will go up, and then that also has its own implications. So it's a deep topic, but what we're concerned about here is the well-being of the dogs. And I mean, we've discussed, as you know, Cath, on this program many times before, things like how lots of puppies were acquired during lockdown, not always from scrupulous breeders, I might add. And then, people had these dogs while they're at home. Now they have to go back to work. That is also putting pressure on them. And now, just to cap it all, the cost of maintaining that pet has now gone up as well, and continues to. So it all seems to sound like a lot of people perhaps have dogs that hadn't really thought through what it costs to have a pet.
No, I think over the years we've always seen what I call busy times in rescue, and that's generally before the summer holidays, Easter holidays, half-term breaks, when people are going away on holiday, and it's like, oh, what we're going to do with the dog? Oh, let's book it into the kennels. Oh gosh, didn't realise that's how much it costs to put the dog in kennels. Why don't we rehome the dog? So,
very good point.
Traditionally, we have always been busy at those times. And, I always think about an old friend, my friend Sandra, who always was a rehoming officer for STECS until she passed away. And she worked as a vet's receptionist, and it was in the Liverpool area. And regularly there were certain families who would let the dogs go on the streets. The dog warden would pick the dog up. They'd go away on holiday for 7 days, come back and then get the dog out to the local pound, because it was cheaper to do it that way than it was to pay for the kenneling fee.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. A real absence of responsibility there, and it, the stress it must cause to the animal, because when you get put in a dog pound, this is not a holiday, folks. This is not I'm not suggesting that those who handle the dogs and who intern them are being cruel to them. I'm not making that suggestion. But certainly, this is not. They're not going to be pampered pooches going into a place like this.
No.
And it must be very stressful for the dog as well.
Definitely. Some dogs, they don't want to eat when they go into the kennels, because it's just they are so stressed. As a dog warden, Pound, you can only give emergency treatment to a dog. So, if the dog's got a leg hanging off, then yes, they'll take the dog down to the vets and provide emergency treatment. But if it's, looks like it needs worming or defleeing, they won't actually do those things because they're not allowed to. If they can't clip the dog, it might be very hot. They can't clip the dog because they haven't got the owner's permission. So they can only do emergency treatments, to the animals. So, from STECS' point of view, we're always looking at the various dog pounds and dogs' homes. If any Scotties or Scotty crosses go in, then we're always willing to pick them up and take them on and find the new home for the dogs. But, in the past, some people, that's how they used to work, going back. And it's not that long ago. I would say it's probably in the last 10 years, that people would do things like that to get a cheap break, for the dogs. I think the councils have got wise to it now. You do have a big hefty fee. You also get fined if your dog's found roaming. So it's definitely not a thing to do.
No, clearly not. And of course, that cost of that is ultimately, sadly, borne by the animal, because if there's a £500 or a £1,500 fine or whatever it is that they're charging for this, somebody has to pay for that, and that will be the owner. And then the owner will, of course, probably take it out on the animal by feeding them less, or I don't know, whatever it is that they will do to try and economise.
They actually leave the dog at the pound. They don't go back and claim the dog in a lot of cases.
Yeah, that's also a possibility. Yeah.
Again, we've had dog wardens and the kennels ring us to say we've got a Scottie in. It's done its 7 days. The owners have disclaimed the dog. They don't want to pick it up, and we'll run and pick the dog up. I think
it's both shameful but also shocking that people, they're such lovely dogs. I mean, all dogs are lovely, but we know as owners of Scotties just how lovely and sweet and wonderful they are. And then to hear that the owners couldn't care less to take them back. I mean, what kind of owners were they in the first place? Honestly, I mean, these people need a reality check, and I think all of our listeners will feel the same way.
Yeah, for some people, it's just a throwaway world. Get the dog, it's a fashion item, fed up with it now. It doesn't do what I want it to do. All dogs will do things, but they just got to be trained. They've got to be asked correctly.
Exactly, absolutely right. Well, look, fascinating topic. But, one of the nice things about doing these Pawed-Casts is that they also lend themselves to new ideas and new ways of looking at things. And while we've been talking about this, one thing that sort of came across sort of my way of thinking is the possibility that we might have a kind of, I suppose you could call it, a whole of life budget. So that at the moment, people usually think only as far as what's it going to cost to buy a puppy if they want to buy one, or can I get one on the cheaper by going to a dog's home and picking it up from like Battersea or from STECS or from whoever, and then factoring on top of that all the other costs that are involved. People don't do that. They just think, how much is it going to cost to get the dog? They need to really have. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know, Cath, what your view on this is, but I would like to see a projection that people can rely upon. What does it cost to have a Scottish Terrier? What does it cost? Meaning, the cost of the food, the vet bills, the annual jabs that you must have, any kind of registrations that are required. The possibility you might be fined if something goes wrong. Let's hope not. And the cost of grooming as well. And which is also an important part of their health and well-being. So all of that, and possibly a few other things if you really want to, like, for example, I go away on my holidays, twice a year. So I'm going to also need the help of somebody to look after my dog. So I need to pay them, or otherwise I'll use the pound, and then the council will come after me.
Yeah.
So all of these things to consider. What do you think about that? A kind of a whole of life budget where people can see the cost of owning a Scottish Terrier over 5 years, over 10 years, and if you're lucky, over 15 years. That would really bring it home to people what it costs. And I know I've spent a fortune. I don't even know how much precisely, but that's exactly why we will need a kind of cost of living, not cost of living, but a whole of life budget for this. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. It's something you've got to, be prepared. It's, when we talk to people who are wanting to adopt one of our dogs, on the back of the form, we state on there, that the dogs need grooming, approximately 6 to 8 weeks. The average cost of that, which on average I'd say is £45. You've got your yearly injections, which can be anything between £40 and £100, depending on which vets you use. You've got your worming treatment, your flea treatment. Your flea treatment, you've £30 a tablet, and then you need to give that 4 times a year. So, you just do the maths on that alone. You've got your insurance if you're insuring your dog, which again, depending on the postcode where you live, you can be looking at, I'd say, an average of £40 a month. For some dogs, it could be £100 if they've had, a claim previously and it's relating to something long term. So, it really does all add up. The dog food that I do buy a grain-free food, and that has increased in price by £10 a bag just over probably last month.
So you're saying by £10, so from what to what, just so we can get a feel?
I get it at a wholesale price, so it's gone up from $18.99 and it's gone up to $29.99 now.
Yeah, so just about 10, 11 quid. Yep.
That's it.
That's quite a large percentage when you think about it, because that's basically gone up by 1/3.
Yeah, and that's a whole-sale price. So,
that's 33% for those who are following what we're saying. 1/3, 33%. That is a choking increase. This isn't about just increasing it 5% or whatever, which is what people might, listening to this program, might expect because of what the official inflation rate is. But actually 33% more is what you're paying than what you were paying before.
Yeah. And the wholesalers are telling me, well, it's an increase, the fuel, getting the product from the manufacturers into the wholesalers. The diesel prices have shot up, the prices of the raw ingredients. And I don't think these prices are ever going to come back down.
No.
We might see a slight decrease, but,
well, you see,
it's something I'm
businesses...
going to have to budget for, because it's going to be 30 quid a bag,
yeah,
and maybe going up again. Yeah.
Well, we're doing this live, folks, and so I'm actually going to now make an admission, which is I got my numbers wrong. It's even worse. I said 33%, right? Well, I've just realised, actually, if you were paying nearly £20 a bag and now you're paying £30 a bag, so £10 more, that is actually a 50% increase, because it's gone up by half of the original price, right? So that's a 50% increase, so it means you're paying a third more if you follow the semantics of language. And so the figure is a shocking 50% markup which you're paying. And I think you're right, Cath, in that I think that many businesses will take this as an opportunity not to bring prices back down again, a little bit like oil prices, I guess, in that a lot of businesses have been starved of revenue and have been disrupted by the pandemic over the last 2 years, and that in itself has resulted in them having to make certain economy measures. So I suspect that now they're actually going to be very keen to try and recoup that money. So if they have an opportunity to pass on a cost like this, they might very well, very well do that, whether it's manufacturers or retailers for that matter.
Yeah. And then, the vets fees, again, those prices are going up. It really is scary.
Absolutely.
Yes, the love we get from our dogs, from our animals, it is priceless. But, at the end of the day, if you've got children to feed as well, a mortgage to pay, everything else. And I think this is one of the reasons why the big dog homes around Birmingham especially, they will be seeing a huge increase in dogs coming in.
Couldn't agree more. Right, well, it's a topic we'll come back to, and we might even ask our listeners, or certainly our members in an online poll, what they think about the idea of a whole-of-life budget for their dogs. They might be surprised at just how much it costs to maintain a dog. I know you'll probably be doing the numbers, and I'll be delighted to talk to you at a later stage, Cath, about what if you put all the costs together, what we would be looking at over these different milestones of 5, 10 and even 15 years. But a fascinating topic. Okay, well, let's move on to the next thing, because we really have been speaking very generously about this topic, and I think it's a really important one that we started on. But we have other things as well. So now turning to the question from one of our listeners and members of London Scotty Club. You've got it right there, haven't you? Do you want to read out what you've got?
Yep, this question's from Alejandra. She says, recently Dakota only wants to go on walks in the places that she knows and likes when she's on the lead. For example, she walks okay if we're going to the park, but if I want to go out to the park on another walk, she'll sit down and won't move. The word treats might get me another 10 metres, but then she will sit down and stop. And she's asking what can she do to make a walk?
Well, this is a remarkable question, isn't it? I was just thinking about that because my two dogs really get bored of going the same route every day, and they look for any excuses to try and take me around another route, maybe a longer one. Usually it is a long one, of course. They've already thought that one through. And in any case, it is quite remarkable that they know when we shortchange them, if I take them on a shorter route as well. But most of all, they like new routes. Here we seem to have the opposite. We seem to have a case of somebody who does not want to go new routes, wants to stay familiar. Yeah,
I'd say with this dog that she's going out of her comfort zone. She's happy in the park. That's her comfort area. She's happy there. So you're asking her to go somewhere different, and she's got anxiety issues. She's not showing the anxiety by kicking off and barking at another dog. But if you probably look at her behaviour, I would say she's anxious, and I'll sit down. I'm going to be stubborn. I'm not going to move. I don't want to go there. So what you need to do is to encourage the dog to walk forward by keeping the lead very slack. If the lead is tight, if you're in front and the dog's behind and that lead's tight, she won't move anywhere. And especially if you turn around and say, come on Dakota, this way, and you're facing the dog, you're giving the command to stop. So you must try to walk in the direction where you wanted to go. But sometimes you've got to walk forward but have your arm behind you, so there's slack on the lead, and encouraging the dog to come forward. Maybe a calmer wrap will probably help her, because I think it's all probably relating to anxiety issues, because I believe the dog's only 2 years old. If she was an older dog and being stubborn and I don't want to go, I'd probably be saying, if the dog's 8 years old plus, I'd be saying, make sure you've done some routine bloods, see what the liver function's doing, because a lot of our dogs tend to get a little bit lazy when there's starting things to happen in the body. Outwardly, we can't see any changes, but inwardly for the poor dog, it's like, I've just got a bit of a twinge in my tummy, I don't want to move. And so if we do those routine bloods, we can just see what's happening.
Okay, well, that sounds like very sound advice, so thank you very much for that to you, Cath. So finally, let's turn to the last topic, which is the online poll. And before we do that, just let's I hope that Alejandra will be listening to this episode and might take the opportunity to let us know how she gets on with the advice that she heard today on the programme. So onto the online poll. Well, we had a pretty good response. Again, around a third of our membership voted in this, so it's pretty weighty. We asked a couple of questions last week of our members, and here we have the results. The first one is the topic that I raised earlier, which is how many hours does your Scottie sleep a day? Now, before we announce the results of this poll, I want to ask you, Cath, from your perspective. I mean, you've got about 8 customers there at the moment. On average, what do you reckon? How many hours? This is using the 24-hour clock, of course. How many hours do your Scotties sleep?
I'd say mine sleep for a good 12 hours a day. 8 in the evening. When we go off to bed, we like a good 8 hours sleep if we can get that. And even during the day, whether I'm working on the computer or out in the garden, people say, "Where's the dogs?" And I'll say they'll take themselves off to the bed and they'll put themselves in the boot room, and you'll find them all snoring on the mats about 10 o'clock in the morning. Probably 10 till 12 they'll have a couple of hours snooze, and again in the middle of the afternoon another couple of hours.
Very good. Okay, well, here are the results then of your dogs are not average. Is what I'm about to tell. They're not average. Okay, so here we have it. So the most popular result. Let's cut straight to the chase. 47% of respondents came up with up to 15 hours. So we asked 1 to 2 hours, 3 to 5 hours. You'll be surprised that there are a few in that category. Up to 10 hours, up to 15, up to 20. All day and night, or I don't have a clue. We actually had one person said, "I have no clue how many hours my dog sleeps." Maybe that's true, because we don't really know if they're really sleeping or they're pretending to sleep, of course.
Yep.
So that's not a bad response, actually. I'm surprised it was only one person who said that. But in any case, nobody said 1 to 2 hours. 3 to 5 hours, 18%. Up to 10 hours was 22%. And as I said, the all-out winner was up to 15 hours a day, around 47%, I would say, if I'm rounding it up. So pretty good. That's the results of that survey. And then the other question that we asked our members was about how do they listen to London Scotty Radio's Pawed-Casts. And we had quite a nice spread of responses. I will only read out the ones that are sort of larger and more significant, because we asked lots of things like, eating breakfast, walking the dog, cycling in the bathroom, commuting, housework, taking exercise, eating dinner, not the same as breakfast, of course, doing homework or catching up on emails, and so on and so forth, chilling out with my dogs, and so on. So we found that actually the most, and it was quite close, but the most popular response for those who do listen to the podcast was chilling out with my dogs. 22% said so.
Oh wow,
pretty good. So they're just sitting there enjoying the company of their dogs, listening to the podcast. What a great way of doing it. And then you can look at your dog and say, "I'm so glad you don't have problems with your teeth," because that's what they're talking about on the show, that sort of thing. So absolutely lovely to hear that is the most popular way for people to pick up their podcasts. Another popular one we found was doing housework. That makes sense, ironing, maybe sweeping the floor, maybe doing the dishes in the kitchen. People do listen, so nearly 10% do it while listen while they're doing their housework. Another popular one was walking the dog. Now that was even more popular. In fact, that came in at just under 13%, walking the dog, which is actually very good, because one of the nice things people have figured out is that you can listen to podcasts, but you don't have to be literally praying to your computer. You don't have to be sitting there you can just use a mobile phone. You can go outdoors, walk your dog, put your headphones on if you like, plug in and listen. You can stream from so many different apps. So it's really nice to know that people have got into that idea, and therefore they're able to do two things at the same time. They're able to make sure the dog gets the exercise they need, but also the listeners are also getting a chance to catch up on these things. So really, really good results.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's good that a third of people have come forward with those results. Yep.
Now, nearly a third of respondents said they have not yet listened to London Scotty Radio. Shame on them. Okay. And a further, and this is the most interesting one, 15.6%, to be very precise, said they listened to our podcasts in other ways, under the category other. So we might be in touch with some of those respondents individually just to find out what they are doing. How do they listen? We are intrigued. We want to know more. So there we go. All right, so that's the results of our survey. Now, I want to put it to you. Do you listen to our podcast, and how?
I do. I generally listen when I'm doing a little bit of housework.
Okay,
Catching
all right.
up on the housework. So I'm not that technical to be able to do it when I'm walking the dog at the moment. And plus, generally, the dogs that I've got with me, I'm concentrating on them because with some of them, if they're in for behavioural issues, the moment that you drop your guard, they've caught me off my guard, and they'll be wanting to growl and grump at another dog that's passing by.
Right.
So,
Okay, well, I have to say, and one response I'm really delighted about is it got 0%, which is what I'm very pleased to hear, is the answer, trying to get to sleep. I'm so pleased they're not
good.
using us in order to try to get to sleep. I'm so delighted. Ladies and gentlemen, take a bow.
That's good.
Yeah, well, everyone take a bow except for me and Cath, because otherwise we'll headbutt the microphone. But you get the general idea. Right, well, Cath, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us on today's programme. And
You're welcome.
We will probably look into the topic of budgeting for owning a Scottish Terrier, and I'd be delighted if you might email me your thoughts on these cost issues.
I'll get the calculator out and fright myself to deff. And,
or the abacus. Get the old abacus out.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone uses those anymore.
No.
But no, it was really, really good to sort of get your feedback on that, and we may very well put a question to our members. What do you think it costs over 5, 10 and 15 years to own a Scottish Terrier? And let's just see what people say, what kind of numbers they come up with, because we just want to get a feel for what people perceive it costs. And then on the next opportunity, we will relate the answers. And what we probably will do is we may very well mention those during the next episode in 2 weeks' time, which will be Jackie. But I will, of course, relate that these figures are from you, Cath, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
super.
Lovely.
Right. Well, finally, just a reminder really to everyone that if you have a question for Scottie MOT, you don't even have to be a London Scottie Club member. Although Lord knows why you wouldn't want to join us. It's free of charge after all. Anyone in the UK can become a member. And for overseas listeners, we offer honorary membership. You always wanted to be an honour. Now you can be an honour. Visit scotty.scot, and from there you can send us your question. Use the online form and attach a photo or a short video if you think that this will help us to look into your problem. Let's remind ourselves this is about Scottish Terriers, so we don't want questions about your Scottish fold cat, delightful though they are, nor about the salamander in the bath. Those are topics we can't cover, right, ladies and gentlemen? Let's just get this into perspective. But anything Scottie related, we would be delighted to hear from you. Remember, there's a dedicated page. It's scotty.scot. That's Scottie with a double TIE. And meanwhile, Cath, again, thanks as always. And
thank you.
Show back in 2 weeks' time. Wishing you all healthy Scotties. Thanks for listening to London Scottie Radio. This and all our podcasts are available online at londonscottie.club. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe to us from your favourite podcast player app. Also visit us on YouTube for fun videos. And if you have a Scottish Terrier in London or nearby, be sure to join us.